Welcome to Sebring International Raceway for Friday night prime time here on RaceSpot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live. It's Will Vincent alongside Jake Sparry, and today it's the Kamel GT Cup that will be taking centre stage, Jake.
It certainly will, and with the grid forming up, we've got 25 drivers all hoping to get themselves a good opportunity with a pace lap as well before we get ourselves underway for an hour's worth of racing there or thereabouts. This is going to be what drivers love to see. It's about hard-fought action, shall we say. It's about how everyone needs to negotiate a very difficult circuit in terms of the surfaces and in terms of the way that the nature works. And when you've got multi-class racing, traffic is always an issue.
Yeah, and talk about that multi-class racing, Jake, because we're going old school here tonight.
Oh, we certainly are. Kamel GT, Nissans and Audis, and all that you could possibly love if your name happens to start with Cam and end in Walsh. But unfortunately, he won't be here today. But with two lots of classes here, with a very quick, what you'd say, prototype that was arguably always going to be up there in terms of American IMSA back in the day, but more rather you look at the way that this has been seen in terms of the Kamel GT 500 that we had earlier on in the year at Road America. I think this has taken a lot of old school races by storm and has created a brand new division for drivers who normally wouldn't have anything that suits them on the iRacing service.
Yep, starting grid then for tonight's race is showing up on your screen. As we speak, we've got two classes, as Jake's mentioned. We've got the Nissan GTP ZXT, and then the drivers, of course, will be at the front of your field here this evening. We've got 17 of those drivers who will be making this 34-lap dash around Sebring. They're up on your screen. And then afterwards, we're going to have ourselves the Audi 90 Quattro GTO, which many people actually say, Jake, is one of the hardest cars to drive on all of iRacing.
It is, because it works incredibly different to any vehicle that naturally exists, and you need to have a certain element of understanding to drive it. It has a lot of issues with the turbo, so that when you are braking down, you're very likely to spin that vehicle, and you have to be a certain sort of driver to deal with it. Now, surprisingly, at the front of the field is a driver named Joni Hagner, Will, who for the last year or so has gone missing, except for being around here and around Kamel. So I don't want to say anything, but I think Joni Hagner's fallen in love.
I think so as well, as the drivers are currently doing their pace lap here on RaceSpot TV, a part of Friday night primetime. You know what, Jake? The first time ever we have no broadcast this coming weekend.
It's scary to think that, and this is normally the part of the season where all the endurances come into play. Everyone gets a little bit pepped up, a little bit hyped for every weekend. There is this long 4-hour race, but with no races this weekend, of course, you've got the iRacing Road to Pro coming along soon, which will take a slot, Neo, SCO, DGFX. There is a lot of racing and a rare quiet week, so it seems that everyone wants to have a Halloween party.
Yes, indeed they do. As I'm having a look at the front of your field, and there is the driver of Keith Ritchie right now on the front row of that grid, as just working themselves now through the northern end of the racetrack. And again, we go back in the history of time, Jake, and we really do think about the great racetracks around the world. Sebring has been such a big part of that over the years, of course, hosting the second round of what is now the IMSA Sports Car Series. And it really does provide a very unique challenge because it's got two different types of racing surface here.
It does. You've got the concrete that you see on the start-finish straight, which is always very slippy, very dangerous to deal with. And then you head out towards the out sections of the circuit where it's asphalt, and you really can just suit that lap up together by just setting yourself in. And it actually produces a lot of difficulty here with this asphalt because it's very bumpy around this circuit. So those Nissans, which work very well with ground effect and areas around that, will have a lot of difficulty trying to keep their power down when the vehicle is going to be thrown 6, 7, 8/10 of a second in the air at parts of the circuit. You've got to be incredibly careful about how this circuit works. Now, Keith Ritchie at the front of the field, arguably you'd say, Will, is the favourite from this one. He is Mr. GTP as things stand. He got robbed of a chance to fight for the GT 500, which was won by Kei Kashibe, but Keith Ritchie, keep an eye on this name.
we've got to ask ourselves a serious question. I know there's two Brits in the broadcast booth tonight. Nissan or Nissan?
Nissan.
Okay. We'll go with Nissan. And I'm watching in America, we do apologize. And also, don't forget, smoking's bad for you as well. There's your field then lined up. Good separation between your two classes of cars. There are your Audi 90 Quattro GTOs. There's about a 25 car length, so I'll call it right now, between the two of them at this slow speed. But Keith Ritchie, Martin van Loozenhoorn at the front of your field. They are ready to go racing here for what will be 34 laps around the Sebring International Racetrack. There will be a pit stop that will come into play as well. The pace car will make its journey on towards pit road, and as it does so, let's go racing. Green flag in the air here from Sebring.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful start from Keith Ritchie. Caught Martin van Loozenhoorn absolutely stone cold in the water. Battle for third now as it's Tapani Linuluoto who wants to go down the inside. That's not going to work then in your GTP field. They're all going to sort themselves out nicely here, Will. Behind that, it is breakaway Joni Hagner into one with Brian Strobeck through on Philip Lake as Franco Scuri wants to try and have himself a go, the Italian in fourth. And it's all single file and everyone's clean.
Oh, yes, they are. 1 hour's worth of racing then underway. About 34 laps is what we expect it to be. As you see, Joni Hagner is leading the way right now. Having a look from the rear in terms of him, as he has got himself the early advantage over the driver of Brian Strodbeck as they now work themselves down towards that very tight hairpin. That's what they're doing right now, as Hagner's got himself half a tenth of a second advantage. We have had two drivers that didn't start this race, Chester Thompson and Brian Beers, but everyone else is still racing right now. As for the top guys out in front, Keith Ritchie does have the way. It is Jonas Ursen Purka who is in second place as they head towards Le Mans.
Yeah, and this is a very, very interesting section of road. You're breaking down to the right, back onto the power, use all of the circuit and a bit more to open up this right-hander onto the Ullman straight. For Ocean Puheka, he's got to stay within slipstreaming range. Otherwise, he'll allow Martin van Loozenhoorn back into play. And Martin, as a driver, has recently just set up his own racing academy, Will. So he's looking maybe to sort of try and make a living out of sim racing. And this is a driver who, at one stage, had world championship material.
Yeah, indeed so. Lap number 1 is completed. Live timing and scoring is available on Racebot.tv. Just visit racebot.tv/timing for that one. We'll keep you up to date all evening long. Just having a look down for your field. Close battle. Clayton McLeod. I haven't seen him in a while. He's on Racebot.tv versus... free wide for a moment there down into turn number 2. As Clayton McLeod is actually going to lose a position, and that is to the driver of Antti Lipisto, because it was very close between those three drivers heading themselves through that section.
Yeah, Antti Lipisto holding on to that move there, Will, instead of seeing the move taken. So two vehicles very similar in livery. Jamie Hall just behind that as well. Always a familiar name when it comes to classic races like these. But Clayton McLeod, you could argue in this situation, trying to punch above his weight a little bit. He's the number 12 rated iRacing driver up against the number 2 rated driver in Antti Lipisto. And Lipisto losing touch with Rob Olenzijak just in front of him. So Lipisto's got to be careful here. He's fully on defense mode in the early goings. You don't want to be fighting too early on.
Yeah, let's go on board Brian Strodbeck right now as he fights out with Joni Hagner. Battle for your race lead in your GT machines. And you know what I love, Jake, in these type of races? You just have a look on board of a driver, and it really does look proper old school. I mean, you have a look around there, for example, the dashes, they're old school. They've got little knobs going around. There's none of this computerized graphics. This is going back to what it used to be.
Yeah, it certainly is going back to what it's used to be. And, well, I'd go a little bit careful on the way you were phrasing a couple of things there, Will. But right now, Joni Hagner's got to be careful. Brian Strobeck, always a driver who is very, very consistent. You can see he was having a little look there with that line, which wasn't taking a natural course down to the inside. He's giving Hagner a reason to think right now as they head through Le Mans and onto the Ullman Straight for the second time, the run to Sunset Bend. But Brian Strobeck really looking to try and just make a nuisance in the mirrors here in comparison to Joni Hagner. I think Hagner's got to be careful about that moving on forward, because he knows that if there is just half an opportunity, I think Brian Strokebeck would go for it.
Yeah, and you see he got really close there through Sunset Bend, the corner of 1,000 lines, as we call it. And behind, we will say also, we are going to probably end up polarizing our coverage towards the Nissans, because there is only 8 drivers in terms of your Audi Quattro field here today. I mean, we have got a fantastic battle out front. We have also, though, got battles going on down in the mid-pack of your Nissan field. I just want to take a look back then on a replay, and let's have a look at this. Side by side, Jamie Hall versus Clayton McLeod, and Hall was able to get himself ahead, Jake.
Yeah, very good move from Jamie Hall. He moves himself up a position, but the issue is of trying to make that move in the early goings, as he's lost complete contact almost with Antti Lepisto just in front in the battle for 6th, 7th and 8th. So Lepisto given a bit of respite there as Jamie Hall made his way through. Now Hall's got to work over the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, I'd say, Will, to bring that gap back down to a reasonable margin.
Yeah, indeed so. And that is the look then from the rear of the driver of Jamie Hall right now. 2 drivers both in classic Nissan colours. You got yourself, I've just said it, I said Nissan instead of Nissan. Clayton McLeod there is down in P number 8 as we speak right now. But I'm just having a look and keeping an eye out. Joni Hagner last time by has been able to get that advantage up to 8 tenths of a second. You know what the interesting thing was? That last time by, as they crossed the line, the gap between Keith Ritchie and Jonas Purka is exactly the same as what it was with Joni Hagner and Brian Strokebeck there. So these guys are both in very close battles, and these are for your race leads in both your 2 categories.
Yeah, it certainly is. Nustin Kuheka in the Nissan battle right now is really just maintaining the gap. He's closing in about half a tenth of a second every single time he goes by. And when they get to the hour point in this race, which is the end, it's a case of, when do you cross that line? Do you have to do that extra lap? Do you have to do that extra little bit of fuel saving? When there is that one pit stop that has to be remembered is in this series. So it's not a case of everything's all going to be sunshine and rainbows and it's a straight up dogfight. Strategy does come into play, and Keith Ritchie's got to be careful. Brian Strokebeck, on the other hand, having to be very careful. He lost 6 tenths of a second over that last lap to Joni Hagner, and I can't help but feel, but that was done in the early stages of the last lap for Strokebeck to not be able to close up right to Joni Hagner.
Yeah, and sometimes you want to keep yourself a little bit of a distance. Dirty air, even these ground effect cars, is a big thing. Back in P number 12 then, we got ourselves a number 21 machine, number 20 machines battling out. Kurcik versus Troika, and Troika turns it around. He loops it around. And that's the thing, though. These cars are not really designed to go at low speed, Jake. They work better above a certain speed range.
They certainly do, and that tower corner is always going to be very difficult for Radek Sikora there to really make his way through. And the higher gears you're in, the better. You're always trying to stumble to get out of the gates to get towards second gear. That's why it's a rolling start more rather than what is normally characterized, Will, as a standing start, because those Nissan machines will really struggle to get through. Martin van Loozenhoorn in trouble.
Yeah, he's in big trouble. I think he's blown it. He's not blown it. I mean, it's that weird part. What has he done? Because...
Well, he's got too aggressive, Will, off of Sunset Bend, trying to keep the power down, just unable to keep the vehicle in check. You don't often see a spin onto the front straight. You normally see it coming in, but coming out of the corner, that is a weird one for Martin van Loozenhoorn.
It is, and it's right on the exit. And you talk about earlier on this broadcast how sometimes these cars get air. Well, I've got a feeling that that car just lost traction at the very last part of the corner. Here we are, having a look again from our overall cover. He started looping the back end, but I think then he completely lost traction on the exit of the corner. That's what turned him around. He did touch the wall there on the inside, the attenuator connecting the pit road to the racetrack, but I think he'll be okay in terms of that one. The issue for him, though, he's now down in P number 8.
But it's a big recovery drive for Martin van Loozenhoorn. It doesn't seem there's too much damage on that machine, so he'll get away with it, but he's got to now scrap his way through the field. The advantage, though, Will, is that he's done it early, and it may seem very silly to say that he's made a mistake early, but it gives him more time to recover and make that mistake back. As far as I'm concerned, he's dropped back, 10 seconds from where he was on circuit? 10 seconds can be made up here on this track. It's not as clear-cut as what people think, and already you can see he is on the back of the driver of Clayton McLeod.
He is coming back to the same corner once again. Though 10 minutes then of this race will be scored complete the next time the drivers come around this track. You know what I actually think as well? How fast these guys are going at what is a very difficult technical racetrack in old machinery. We go back to your race lead then. Down in your GT category, Joni Hagner versus Brian Srodbeck. As they go right now, the gap was as low as 0.3 of a second. But I do think that Brian is just kind of keeping it in distance right now, not falling back too much, but also realizing that he doesn't want to get into that dirty air and ruin his tires too much.
No, he doesn't want to ruin his tyres against the Glacier Racing driver, because at the end of the day, you've got to have as much grip as possible to keep yourself in check. And well, as he is staying behind right now, all he's doing is actually preserving his tyres a little bit more from comparatively if he was 0.3 of a second closer to Joni Hagner just in front of him, because the more dirty air effect you've got, the more understeer your vehicle's going to generate, the more that you're actually going to be ruining the tyres out on circuit. So by staying back at this 0.7 of a second sort of gap, Will, he's actually doing more to save his tyres than he would be if he was right behind Joni Hagner.
And that's what we call smart racecraft as well, Jake. Knowing the fact this is an hour race and there is a pit stop involved. You do not win the race in lap number 1. In fact, what you do in a race like this, it's a bit like an endurance race. You try to make the least number of mistakes possible. And most of these drivers will make a number of mistakes, small, tiny little mistakes, over the course of this event. We go back on board with Van Loosenhoorn, for example, and he's been in this situation, he's made a big mistake. But for most of these drivers, it's more of a case of making sure you get to the end, as we've got lapping already of the rear of your GTO field.
Yes, we do, as Oisin Piheka gets around Giorgio Buscemi. And look at Oisin Piheka almost hit the tyres there coming through Sunset Bend. He got tracked out outside of his line, wasn't able to take that inside line, and as such was 0.6 of a second back. Now the gap opens up. It's now 2.3. That's 2 seconds almost he lost just by being forced to thrown offline by lap traffic. And this lap traffic in a one-split field, Will, is always going to be more difficult to deal with, mainly due to the fact that there is a massive contrast in iRacing ranges.
There is indeed, and actually we're going to talk about that one in a moment's time. We're going to ride on board as we do so with the driver, your race leader, Keith Ritchie right now. But because we've got one World Championship driver in this field, that's Tapani Lenalotto right now. He's got 7,500 iRacing. If he had 75,000, then things would be so much different. The lowest iRacing in this field, 1,078. And again, I am never in the game of iRacing bashing, because certain drivers, they actually don't necessarily run in, official races that much. But 7,500 to 1,000 is a big thing. And of course, you look at that, you hear that, and you've got a spotter working with you. Immediately you think, okay, what does that mean in terms of experience?
Exactly, and to put that into retrospective, someone like me who races on a blue moon has only 1,200 iRating, so there's not much difference in terms of that. But this is why there's a safety rating involved, because that's more of a better indicator to say, well, how safe is this driver when they get on the circuit? With a lower number, say, for example, on your safety rating, then you understand that maybe there is more of a chance that you are less experienced and you maybe find yourself into a barrier one time too many. But what I think that a lot of drivers will be thinking about here in these early stages is that if they don't have a spotter, they have no real way of gauging what's going on. As I was looking at Andrei Rajkovic for Hawk Sim Racing in the 14, struggling to get around Chris Foy. You catch traffic in very difficult places at times, and at a circuit like Sebring, sometimes you can see crash vests and traffic being a difficulty. Take Neo for an example from a couple of weeks ago. There are only 4 retirements in a 6-hour race, so it is very difficult and very different in terms of what this circuit does produce. And
also there's the first thing is driving a car, getting a lap done at this racetrack. The second thing is doing 30 or so laps around this racetrack. The third thing is doing those laps whilst working yourself amongst various types of traffic in cars that are, let's be honest, pretty unstable. I was just seeing right now the driver of Kidrick going through some of this traffic, and he's going to be held up a little bit as he works himself through turns 2, 3 and 4. See the traffic on the right hand side just moving out the way. But I want to turn my attention there to driver Fiera. He lost not only a position, but he has lost, get this, 6.5 seconds in one lap to driver of Jungwolf. because of the fact that he couldn't negotiate the traffic, A, in the right places, but B, didn't necessarily have the confidence to do so.
Exactly, and Pedro Ferreira will be looking at ways that he can manage that, because in the space of 8 laps he's lost half a second to your race lead, well, half a minute shall I say, not half a second, half a minute to your race leader. So he'll be hoping for mistakes from drivers in front like Krejcik there, just in front there, having to just slam on the brakes a little bit through the mid part of Cunningham corner there, because of the fact that he was trying to keep that power going and the vehicle was just not having it, wanting to turn it around. Keeps it together, but now Ferreira with a chance on the run towards Le Mans.
Yeah, and you can see there, 2 seconds lost in the space of 1 lap compared to driver Krejcik, and that is what forced the overtake. Now, those 2 seconds necessitated a pass there by Krejcik over Ferreira, but it's very difficult to overtake, and again, going wide down at Le Mans corner for that number 17 machine, and he's now losing a lot of time, a lot of ground on the exit of what is a very difficult corner. Jamie Hill, however, in at the number 6 machine, running in 6th place right now versus Antti Lepisto. This is a battle that has just been quietly brewing over the course of, oh, we've got a driver on pit road already. That is John Keefe, and he's already coming towards pit road. I don't see any damage to that car, though.
I don't see damage. It may be a very early stop, but I think these vehicles, when they are maybe a little bit more limited, might just have to be a case to be made. But sometimes the damage isn't a visible thing, Will.
Yes.
Sometimes it may be something with the under tray that may be the big issue with John Keefe. So we don't know at this stage. This may be a scheduled stop. It's very early to make that happen, but otherwise, you could call that maybe an unscheduled arrival.
18.9 seconds on the lanes. I'm going to call that a very early pit stop then. I want to give a big shout out as well to And One Design. This is the first time we've used this on RaceSpot Primetime, our multi-class overlay in pit stops. And you can see fantastic graphics there done by our friends over at And One Design. Also, our friends over at ATVO as well for really helping us visualize these races as we go through them. As we actually have a look then at your top 3 in each of your classes now on the left-hand side of your screen. It's Keith Ritchie leading the way in terms of your GTP field. And then you've got Yunus Uzan Purka in 2nd place and Zapani Lenoloto in 3rd. Then back to your GTO field, you've got yourself Joni Hagner. He's leading now by 1.8 seconds over Strodbeck, and Philip Lake rounds out your top 3. And Strodbeck actually did lose out a little bit as the traffic moved past him in that first sequence there, Jake. And I think he's losing out a bit more as well this time by. Got a driver coming down to the inside of him into turn number 2. Gets that one done nicely. Now we've got to turn our attention to Joni Hagner, and he did the smart thing. He moved out the way early, knowing you lose less time in the corner by doing so.
Exactly, and it goes to the saying that Joni Hagner is an old hand and knows exactly what he needs to do at any given moment. He does it. Zapani Lenoloto then will be the next vehicle to try and dive down through, thinks about it, but look at this. He's going to decide to take that hairpin the way that he wants to, and this is the thing. The GTO machines have better traction coming off the exit. They are better applied to put their power down. So look, it takes an entire Fangio S's section into Cunningham for Lenoloto to catch back up and make that corner. And that's really surprising when you see these two machines go together.
Yeah, indeed. So there's your movers and shakers in this event so far then, as we are working ourselves now about 18 minutes into this event, as we see the top 3 again then on the left-hand side of your screen. But for the moment, I want to keep my eye out on Joni Hagner, because he's got that gap up to, as I say, 2.7 seconds. And we have a look at the lap times, and he's been doing that over the course of the last couple of laps like so. He gained 7/10 of a second last time around, 4/10 of a second almost in lap number 7, and 1/10 of a second there on lap number 6. He is now really putting that pressure on and really getting that hammer down.
But the issue for Brian Strodbeck is he is struggling to stay consistent in throughout the traffic. So as they've seen the 8 machine of Rob Alenzajak just go through at Sunset Bend, Brian Strodbeck is struggling to keep a consistent pace through the mid-stint of his first stint. So maybe that may suggest that Brian Strodbeck's using the tyres a bit more. I think he's legitimately just being too cautious when it comes to traffic. He's not dictating the traffic the same way Joni Hagner is, and Hagner is very easily saying, this is iRacing official races. You've got to come around me, not the other way around. I'm not going to move out of the way the same way you have to in the iRacing World Championship Series. You've got to make your way around me.
Yes, and that is the difference between the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series or the, to be fair, more honestly, the Blancpain GT Series, in the way that lap traffic has to abide by blue flag rules. The blue flag rules in a standard race basically means, hey, there's someone behind you, but they have got to necessitate that clean pass over you. They cannot just dive down to the inside. And as we get into the winter, Jake, I mean, the different rules and the different regulations, they do play a big thing in drivers' mindsets. And that's a lot of the time why we see less drivers running in the winter in official races, because it's very difficult to negotiate Pro Series regulations, and then also things like Neo Series regulations, and also then things like what we've got here on Prime Time, because they will attack the racetrack a different way. As I've just noted that Foy has moved himself down the racetrack a little bit.
Yeah, he has. He's down onto the lane is Chris Foy in the 22, so he'll be one of the last drivers to get themselves down in. And you do make a fair point. Drivers sometimes want to break and only want to run one specific series. And if that series is going every single time, season after season after season, you get burnt out from that series. You get tired of running the same circuits with the same vehicles, and sometimes you want a spice of life change. Sometimes you want to try a different vehicle. Maybe Martin van Loosenord wanting to try this different vehicle for this week, now up into 8th position overall out on circuit after a second mistake a couple of laps ago. Maybe, you know, it might be a case of a driver like, say, Tomo Meglic, who drops back and says, you know what, I've done this for X amount of seasons, I need a break. And he runs nothing but the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series. Granted, he's not got a license for next season, but that's a question that otherwise has to be answered. And I think that it's very much down to the driver on what they do and how they choose to take their winter season.
Yeah, there's Chris Foy then out and away, 18.7 seconds. Now he overshot on the entrance to pit road, and then because he had that car in reverse, forgot to put it back forward, he also lost time on the exit of pit road as well. But we'll keep an eye out on an update on that one. There's Stepana Lanlotto right now, currently in 3rd place versus Jonas Unison Purka. Two drivers then who have been a part of the Glacier Racing stable over the course of the years. And we're going to get our look then. And, well, Lanlotto is actually losing quite a bit of time, actually, over Jonas Unison Purka. And I like the thing that you said there about some drivers just like, you know, getting themselves into a rhythm, and actually they don't enjoy that rhythm and want something else. They want to do something else. Now, they're not going to be like Adam Blompier and try and go out their way to deliberately make themselves an issue, but in some cases, it's let's take a different scene. Let's go and do something else. As we see there, number 8 machine currently scored in 4th place. He's running well. iRacing of 43.41, as we've got Keith Ritchie on towards pit road there, Jake.
First stopper after 21 minutes, so Keith Ritchie dives down onto the lane, and who follows him? Not Lanlotto, not Ocean Puheka, so both of them will not be able to respond on this lap. Alenshak will stay out as well, and this is early, so I think he's trying to do the other strategy, which is pit as early as you can, then run a full tank towards the end of the event. It's an alternative strategy, and Keith Ritchie, you could argue the master of the Nissan, well, he's going to try and put that moniker, shall I say, to the test.
Yep. Revving the engine, 17.7 seconds, out and away. He will go then. 41.6 on the lane overall. That is now our benchmark for this evening. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, smoking is bad. Don't smoke.
Yeah, certainly is indeed. But look at the traffic. He is now caught behind Fabian Youngblood and Joni Hagner, and we know Hagner will not let anyone go. And there's almost contact between Hagner and Youngblood. That's enough for Keith Ritchie to go through, but that's 2 seconds at least that's probably been dropped through that 3, 4, 5 section alone. And now he'll be able to make it happen down in towards the hairpin of 7. And just like that, the lead for Puheka is now back in range.
Yeah, and actually, I would say for Jonas Unison-Purka, he now, if he pits now, he will come back out with the race lead. But will he allow Keith Ritchie to just get a couple of laps into the tank, or will he come and respond immediately? We're 24 minutes into this event, and here we are on board with Purka right now. Is he going to respond? The answer to this question is going to be no. He will not. So he will stay out at the front of your field for the time being. He does not see it as a threat. And well, Jake, worth noting that he wasn't really losing that much time to that driver of Keith Ritchie.
He wasn't, and And I think it comes down to different strategy ploys. He may decide to stay out, run it down to the tank as low as possible and get themselves through. But the difference is how much fuel are they actually using? Because if they've not used enough fuel to actually gain the maximum amount of fuel and stop, there's no reason for them to come in. I think the Heck has started with a full tank of fuel and is deciding to run it down to low to nothing so that he can make his way through later on in this event. And that's a very interesting strategy, as Keith Ritchie will now come up to Andrei Rajkovic of Hawk Sim Racing.
And Jamie Hall is off. Jamie Hall is off. He lost it there down on the exit of what I classify as the S's here. They're not really S's, they're just a couple of 90-degree corners, one after the other. But Jamie Hall is off. And, well, he is now losing time. Didn't lose the position, he just lost time. He looked down to the inside of one of the GTO machines and just lost it.
Well, he lost the position to Clayton McLeod, and, well, yes, he did lose it because he was being very, very tentative through that section. I've just seen Keith Ritchie go through on Andrei Rajkovic very easy down into the hairpin. But that's the thing that Jamie Hall's got to be incredibly careful about, as he has to deal with many things, and in fact he's going to park the vehicle. His day is done. He
didn't hit anything though, that's the thing.
Rage quit.
Yep. Welcome to esports. Rage quitting is a thing. I mean, could you imagine that? I know for there's certain drivers who have claimed, and Fernando Alonso is one of them, oh, my car's not working, I'm just going to pull into the garage. But these drivers, you know, Fernando Alonso, Indy 500, when he's outside the top 10 of that period of time, he didn't rage quit. He just carried on driving. These drivers get paid in, well, not in this series, but they get paid in real life to do something. And rage quitting, in my opinion, does nothing at all, except for say that all you care about is winning. Martin van Loozenhoorn versus Clayton McLeod right now. Van Loozenhoorn is back up to P number 6. McLeod in P number 5 right now. And it looks like Van Loozenhoorn is trying to get that gap down and get past. He gained 1 second on lap number 14 over Van Loozenhoorn as he now tries to negotiate. He's not going to be anywhere near close enough. I think he's got bad traction there at turn number 5 as they run themselves towards that hairpin.
Yeah. Martin van Loozenhoorn's struggling a little bit, and he's lost 10 seconds over the last 10 minutes to the leader of Ocean Puhaka, so he is struggling here. He's got into the same rhythm that everyone else has, but the big thing is he gained a second over that last lap in comparison to Clayton McLeod, so Martin van Loozenhoorn is easily going to have that ability to get through, but catching's one thing, passing's another. Van Loozenhoorn knows the moment he gets past McLeod, he gets up to Antti Lepisto, who arguably had the worst lap out of the 3 last time by, so he knows where the challenge is. And then he's got Robert Lenzijak just in front as well, who is even slower than those lots, so he can see a podium just in front of him, but he's got to remember there's Keith Ritchie there who's already stopped.
Okay, reasons why we're not showing you any action over in GTO. Here's the first one. Gap between your race leader and Brian Sodbreck. Well, that is currently classified as 6.6 seconds. You can see that on lap number 13. Sodbreck lost himself 2.3 seconds there over Joni Hagner in terms of lap time. Between Sodbreck and Philip Lake, well, Lake did gain a little bit, but he lost 5 seconds. The 2 laps before that one. Between Lake and Scurry, you see a similar trend, and this is the lap traffic here, Jake, coming into play. It's what I like to call Road Atlanta syndrome, because it's worse at Road Atlanta than anywhere else. You've got to make sure that you don't get into a mindset when losing time puts you out of the motor race. You got to remember, every lap is different, especially if you're in a GTO car compared to the GTPs.
Exactly, and it takes a lot more skill to drive a lower category vehicle that's a little bit slower than it does sometimes to run a higher category vehicle. Rob Lenzijak in the number 8 machine is down on the lane for his one and only stop. This is a good indication for this middle battle of where he comes out once his stop's been done. He did hit the lane very nicely, didn't miss his box at all, gets himself out and away, and crucially enough, there is a lot of clean air for him to work with.
Yep. There we are, number 8 machine then coming back out on track. Did cut across the pit lane line a little bit, but I think he'll get away with that one. 18-second pit stop, 42.2 seconds overall on the lane from start to finish. Just comparing that to other drivers, actually, he's been the fastest of anyone so far today. but you'd almost expect that because of the fact these drivers will put enough fuel in to get to their pit stop, then come in and then do what they need to do. Van Loozenhoorn versus McLeod, that's going to be interesting over the course of the next, I'd say 4 laps time, because they are all going to come on towards pit road, I would say, in the next 4 laps.
Yes, and I don't think he can go much further, and McLeod trying to hold it, he just about saves it, but the position will be lost though. But more crucially enough, it may just be 1 position he's lost, but at least he's not lost his entire race. Yeah,
there's the Evolution Racing team machine then of Martin Van Loozenhoorn. They moved away from being an Aussie-only racing team to being international. I think that's the best decision they've ever made, because Van Loozenhoorn, we know he's fantastic, but in terms of things like the World Championship Series, they have been fantastic in 2017, and 2018 I think will be one of their biggest years ever. Behind we have got ourselves Purka on towards pit road. Finally, he makes a journey on towards the lane. Let's keep an eye out then. What can he do as Purka comes into a stop? Long stop by Urson Purka. This is going to hurt him. I think he got a penalty there. I expect this to be about 33 seconds because I think he's got a penalty. He has had a penalty. Let's replay the tape a little bit and show you the penalty there for Purka, because he has lost himself a boatload of time. Here we are coming on towards pit road. Let's replay the tape a little bit. And well, Jake, that's the only thing, the only reason I can really understand there for Purka. We haven't got that part of the tape, unfortunately. So we're going to replay it again, one more time. This is a run in towards Sunset Bend.
Yeah, and just looking at the way that he had to try and get it onto the lane, he was very, very aggressive with the line, and I can only think that it is, well, looking at the way he's gone through, he very nearly clipped the cone on the entry in, and then he was very, very aggressive hitting that cone, so I can only think he was speeding onto the lane or was speeding during getting down on that pit road, and as such, that's 15 seconds, very much lost in this event, and that's a big, big crucial factor when you get right down to it. Also, looking at Martin Van Loozenhoorn, what I know from talking with ERT boss Brenton O'Brien, I think he's got some words with you afterwards.
Okay. Purka then 31.3 seconds overall, 54.6 then for Purka. That puts him, I'm just trying to work out the maths here, that's about 14 seconds behind Keith Richley.
He would have had the lead had he had not made that mistake, so very, very crucial in this event. Lepisto stays out, Little Luoto stays out, Van Loozenhoorn also stays out, but those are the margins that win or lose you a race, and Purka should know that better than anybody else.
Let's go back and have a look just very briefly in terms of, in fact, let's not look briefly, let's look whole entirely. There's Joni Hagner. He's actually lapping people in his own field right now. And again, if you're looking in GTO versus GTO, you don't expect to be lapping people after 32 minutes at a track around Sebring. That is Chris Foy, not Chris Foy even. I'm trying to work out who the drivers are, but Joni Hagner has just passed them, and I wouldn't say that's an embarrassment, so to say. I'm just going to say that's difficult if you're a GTO driver, and this goes back to the one-split situation that we talked about earlier.
It certainly does, and that was Gregorio Buscemi that he's gone through, and also Hideki Koivisto, and Koivisto's made a stop. I don't think Buscemi hasn't made a stop, but now for Hagner, it's about when do I come down in. I've got control of this race. I've seen drivers in different classes run into issues. I don't want to make mistakes. And right now, in comes Brian Strobeck from second position.
He is, and he's trying to do the undercut there. He knows there's more traffic coming soon, but he's on towards pit road. Strobeck, this could be fantastic for him.
Oh, this could be fantastic indeed, and he knows that if there's any time that the driver of Joni Hagner will be losing, he'll be looking to try and deal with it now. But still, though, Van Loozenhoorn just searching for a way past the driver of Antti Lepisto into Sunset Bend, a million lines. But which one's the correct one? We don't know. That's why it's the corner of 1,000 lines, and out of the exit, Lepisto dives in. But Van Loozenhoorn will stay out as long as Little Luoto does.
Strobeck out and away, 17.1 seconds on the lane. That's the fastest time we've seen so far in your GTO classifications. But we've got to remember, Jake, that he's got less fuel that he needs to take on.
Exactly. So it means that the time on the lane for the driver of what is going to be Joni Hagner will be a little bit shorter. So Hagner will be able to get away as much as he would want to. Where will Lepisto come out, though, in comparison to other drivers who have yet to make their stop? So Coming out now down the front straight is Usi and Puheka, who had that 15-second stretch, shall we say, on the lane. And in terms of the battle with position 4 when it was coming in, Rob Alenzijak, he's not too far off from there. He's got to be careful as also John G. Hill comes in.
Yeah, there is the piece though. And he currently is classified in 9th place behind Soika. Then Puheka is ahead of him by about 9 seconds. I'm going to make that one. As here is Hill on towards pit road. John G. Hill, one of the real veterans of iRacing.
Yeah, one of those drivers with a very low number on his account, and I wouldn't be so surprised to see John G. Hill keep himself busy in the future in a drive that you'll have more knowledge of, knowing more than I have as one of the new wave iRacers, I guess you could call it. And looking down onto the lane, hello, that's Joni Hagner in. Hello, that's Topani Liluoto in.
It's a very long stop actually there for John G. Hill, out and away in 32 seconds. So maybe a speeding penalty or damage for him. But there's a look then at Joni Hagner on towards pit road. The pit stop times seem to be comparable, so we're going to have a look then. First of all, on board of Joni Hagner. The stop times are about 17 seconds at this stage in the motor race. Revving the engine already, ready to go. Here comes Joni Hagner. Long stop. Very long stop. 20.6 seconds there for Joni Hagner. Now this will mean that Lanalotto will get out ahead of him. But for
Strokeback.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking about. Joni Hagner versus Strokeback right now. And Strokeback does go ahead of him, round the inside, through towards turn number 1. Hagner loses what essentially is the race lead. Game on.
Game on indeed, and that's a bad pit stop from Joni Hagner, and you wouldn't expect that from the number 4. The Finn struggling on the lane, and that is surprising. So now Strokeback's playing defense here today, and he knows that he has to play defense. In terms of Liluoto coming out, though, he keeps second position behind Keith Ritchie, who will re-inherit the race lead if it wasn't for the fact that Martin van Loosenorde is still yet to come down onto that lane.
Yep, so there we are. New situation is Strokeback is ahead of Joni Hagner. All that defensive driving he did earlier, not using his tyres, not pushing too much. How is that going to affect him in the last 24 minutes of this event, Jake?
I don't know, but they've got a battle behind them wanting to get involved. That's Rajkovic versus Osi and Puheka right now. That's going to be interesting as the pair of them need to negotiate it. They've both got to be careful, and Puheka dives one down to the inside of Rajkovic and rubs along his side and says, you know what, have a bit of my paint because I'm going to be gone for the hills. Rajkovic will be very upset about that one as he now round Bishop, and well, look at that. Puheka round 1, Puheka round 2. Rajkovic is going to split the pair of them though, and I think he's going to have to do it down the inside, potentially into Le Mans. I don't think he'll be able to do that. Strokeback won't let him, and now he'll be able to get that power back down.
Yes, indeed so. And what that does mean, though, is we now got ourselves a bit of a gap forming. It's only a bit of a gap. It's only half a second. But look at that. We've got another driver trying to go down to the inside as they come down in towards the final corner. Turn number 17, Sunset Bend. Out to the outside goes Strokeback. And this allows then the driver of Joni Hagner to go through. And I think, actually, Joni Hagner will retake second place. Opportunistic move there for the driver of Joni Hagner. He will have the inside line. Can the driver of Strokeback work it on the outside? It's going to be very, very close. It's going to be side by side. And Hagner trying to close the door as they come down in towards turn number 3. The answer, they make contact. And Hagner goes wide. Hagner goes wide. And Hagner loses second place again.
Well, that was all down to being thrown out of position there, the driver of Brian Strokeback. And Strokeback, when he came right down to it, made sure that he was absolutely ruthless with the driver of Joni Hagner. There's not much that Hagner could do in that situation except hope that there was enough room. There was just about one car's width between them when they were down into turn number 3. But fair credit to the driver of what was going to be Brian Strokeback, doing very well to keep on the power as they head through. And they're still not done on the run to Cunningham Corner.
No, we're having a look at the replay then of Joni Hagner versus Strokeback. That's when they make the contact. That's when Hagner goes up and he gets himself off into the grass, but they are continuing to battle and Strobeck seems to have lost a bit of time right now as Hagner looks himself down to the inside, down at Cunningham Corner. He cannot, not Corner, that's Tower Corner there. Hagner cannot make the move complete, and there's more cars going around, and this is where the GTP cars come into play once again. They will have the opportunity to split this traffic, but it's at the right time for the GTP drivers. It's the worst time possible for the GTO machines, and my God, have we got a good battle going on for what is essentially right now P1 overall in your GTO field.
Exactly, and well, you got Philip Lake, who's still yet to come down onto the lane. He should dive down in very soon. In fact, he'll stay out for this lap and try and go a little bit further. So still Hagner versus the driver of Strobeck, and Hagner gets a stunning run out to the exit, unable to maximize putting the power down. He thinks about going to the inside. It's covered all the way by Brian Strobeck, and look at this, the dummy thrown outside line. It'll have to be for Strobeck. It didn't work for Hagner in towards turn number 1 there the first time, but again though, inside line this time for Joni Hagner, but he doesn't get the run off the exit that Strobeck does. Strobeck breaks a little bit earlier, has to give the room into turn number 3. In fact, he runs wide, and Hagner gets it. Hagner finally manages to get it, and that's beautifully done by Joni Hagner. Great positioning of the vehicle.
Yep, so Strobeck then moves himself back down to the 3rd position, and immediately what we noticed there is the fact that Strobeck loses half a second because he's offline. He cannot retaliate down into the hairpin. We have had an issue. This is driver of Fiera. I'm just going to try and see if I can see anything here on board of him, because he has had a moment on track and he is now classified as out of the motor race. But I think that comes down to the fact he's had an issue somewhere else on track, and Fiera, well, all we do know is he's out of the race as it stands.
But I think he's having what we call a bit of a technical issue right now as things stand, so we'll keep an eye on him moving forward. But this field has completely been changed. I'm still looking at Martin van Loosenhoorn, and by the looks of things, I think he's still out on circuit, still yet to come down and make that one and only stop here today, Will. And to go 40 minutes on a tank, you need a lot of fuel saving to make that happen. I think Martin has been very, very clever by the way he's fuel saved today. But
he's still got to come out in P number 4, in my opinion.
Yes, and besides that, he's got to deal with the likes of Rajkovic, Youngblood, who are in that sort of area. In fact, Youngblood's come down onto the lane to make his stop, so maybe Rajkovic, another driver who needs to dive down onto that lane, and yes, he will be one of those drivers. But right now, I think his big worry is that 8 machine here. If he gets out in front of that 8 machine, or Rob Lenjak, he'll be very happy with 4th position after this event. He won't catch Puhecker in my opinion, but it's Rob Lenjak that will be the big challenge for Martin van Loosenhoorn.
Indeed, so as there is Youngblood then coming out and away, 14 seconds. Let's have a look at his end-to-end time, 38.2 seconds. And yeah, I'm going to predict now that van Loosenhoorn is going to be classified in 4th place after his pit stop. There is the gap so far between himself and Jonas Purka, and it's currently classified as 26 seconds then from Purka to your race leader. In fact, I'm going to take this a step further. I think that van Loosenhoorn might still come out in P number 6.
There is a chance it can happen. It depends on how long the stop is overall. So Antti Lepisto still there. Youngblood, yes, has come down to lane. Rajkovic is still yet to stop. So it all depends then on Antti Lepisto and how much he can do. I think P6, as things stand, yes, that's possible. But right now, taking another lap to start his 24th lap of the event, my goodness, he is leaving it a little late as Franco Scuri comes out of pit road.
Yeah, indeed, sir. And there's a look then at the lap gaps. Look at that. Keith Ritchie is closing up on him, actually. He's closed up a total of 1.5 seconds over 3 laps over van Loosenhoorn, and that is not what you want to have when you're trying to lead a race, recover, and get yourself into... you know what? Van Loosenhoorn, he has lost his tyres.
Yeah, he certainly has. He's gone very, very long on his stint, and I think that he's got to be very careful about the way that he navigates the circuit, especially as how narrow and tight it can be, this airfield here in Florida. And, well, he rounds through the right hand, a little bit tentative, but he gets okay. And the question is, how easy can he put down the power heading through that left-hand section? The answer is not very well. He still put the power down, but this is a driver that you are expecting to learn off of, and if he's going this long and losing the tyres, then he's learning as much as everyone else is. So I wonder how his race school is going to be working out after this race.
Yeah, indeed so. So there is Van Loosenhoorn, and there is he coming through Le Mans corner for what he's actually his 24th time around this racetrack. And for Martin Van Loosenhoorn, he has got to come on towards pit road at some point. We don't know when that point is going to be, but we saw drivers come in at about 20 minutes. I think he's on the very end of what he can do right now. And he stays out one more lap.
Well, we were thinking about early stops around 15 minutes or so, 15, 16 minutes. He is right on that limit of 15 minutes to the end. I think he's using all the fuel, a little bit more. 49.2 though, that last lap that we saw from him, and that's towards the bottom of his range of what sort of times that he is able to do. And well, you can see he misses the apex slightly in towards 1, has a twitch, or into 3, twitch through 4, and into 5. He finally sorts out that vehicle heading through Big Bend of 6. He's very easily losing a lot of time in these late stages, and this is what's going to be worrying him, bringing himself back. Comparison then to the 8 machine. Rajkovic has stayed out, and Rajkovic struggling on the tyres. 50.2, 48.7 from Alenzajak. So Alenzajak closed 6/10, brings the gap to 37 seconds. But more crucially, Alenzajak has got a sitting duck in front of him of Rajkovic and traffic of Scurry to deal with.
And the first one of these GTP machines are always going to be the one that gets the advantage. But actually, that last time by, the number 8 machine there of Ultramark, then he got himself the advantage, and the advantage continues as they work themselves now on the exit of Big Bend down towards the hairpin. And the gap is currently now 4 tenths of a second as they exit the hairpin and towards Fangio. I would say that the driver in that number 8 car is struggling quite a bit in various different ways. And let's be honest, Jake, these cars do not work well down in low downforce setups when they've got themselves no fuel. And we saw the dive down there in towards Cunningham Corner, could not make it work. The driver of that number 8 machine had to make it back onto track there. Now they come towards turn number 14, and I will say that Optionek then will have to now, I would say, work himself, drop a bit of time, and then make the run down the Ullman straightaway, get himself to the line through Sunset Bend, and make the move down into turn number 1.
He has to. He's got no other chance. Van Loosenhoorn stays out again onto his 26th lap of the event. The question is, does Rajkovic decide to dive down at such a late stage in this event into the right-hander? Traffic in front of them, that will be helpful. Gregorio Buscemi, who will now have to take the middle of the road, and they almost touch together. I think they do. They make 2 contacts as Rajkovic decides to try and dive down to the lane, and that is big miscommunication, and Alenzajak is around.
They're both around. One of them comes on towards pit road. The other one has to stay out there. Raskovic there comes on towards pit road almost immediately, almost by force there, as he has damage to his race car. Replay up for you right now. And well, Jake, that was big.
That was really big, and Buscemi is one of those drivers who has been struggling all day, not the quickest, and was in the middle of the road, and as lap traffic maybe should have got himself more towards the outside of the road, because the driver of what was going to be the battling machine of Andrei Rajkovic had nowhere to go, didn't understand where he needed to be, knew he needed to go down to the lane. That allowed that driver then of what was going to be Rob Alenzajak to try and send one down the inside. Didn't have enough room, contact was made. But the big issue was Rajkovic had to go down to that lane. Alenzajak didn't, and Alenzajak was holding the middle of the road. And Rajkovic, you had to say, should have held the brakes in that situation. Yes, he was flustered with everything going on, but he should have held the brakes, waited till everything was clear, and then dived down onto the lane, no matter how much time it lost him.
We are going to tell you about what happens right now in terms of your GTO field. You see it on your screen that Hagner is leading by 1.8 seconds over Brian Strodbeck right now, but Hagner has got a bit of traffic around him right now. The gap comes down by 1/10 of a second, but Hagner is in perfect position right now.
Wagner in absolutely sensational position as he's dealing with the driver of Andrei Rajkovic just in front. Chris Foy will have to negotiate past as well as lap traffic and gets through inch perfect. And Strodbeck, not much you can do. I think he's going to fall away from this one. Had an eye on Van Loosenhoorn down to the lane though, Will. He missed his box slightly and is behind Antti Lepisto. And this battle now going on is for what I would class as 4th position on circuit. Van Loosenhoorn has a lot of work to do to get past Lepisto in the last 13-12 minutes of this event.
There's a replay then of Martin Van Loosenhoorn coming out of pit road. Onto the track. Losing a position. That is Lepisto here, who is just ahead of him. And as we go on board then and have a look on board the replay, the gap is only 7 tenths of a second, but 7 tenths of a second in a GTP machine is a huge difference right now as the two battle as they head themselves right now through Collier Corner down towards Tower. And I think Van Loosenhoorn, he just waited too long in my opinion.
Yes, I think there was an element of that was coming into play, and as such, with the fact that he missed his box as well, you just let Lepisto back through. They've got slow traffic in front of them, and that is the machine of Bronislav Robiniak, the Blackadder Motorsports machine. They negotiate around very well, but both of them not taking the line that they'd want. Lepisto a little bit wide off the exit there of Le Mans towards the Ulman Straight. Insta defensive then he goes in comparison to Van Loosenhoorn, who'll do it the long way round at Sunset Bend. 1,000 lines, but which one's the correct one? Well, he's going to have to hope that the wide line works as he takes himself a big amount of pace going through. But watch the exit though. Lepisto will have a better run.
Does he? I don't think he does. Van Loosenhoorn up into P number 4 there. Oh, and on the attack then, on the entry into turn number 1, does come Lepisto for a moment, but he cannot find the way down to the inside there, Jake.
That was beautifully done, though, by Martin Van Loosenhoorn. And for anyone who thinks that Van Loosenhoorn has lost his ability to race over the last 2 years or so, that's probably the reason why you say he's still got enough in the tank, no matter what it is that he chooses to do. And Martin Van Loosenhoorn in the 7, my goodness me, to 4th position like that, the only thing that you'd be saying about Van Loosenhoorn is, why isn't he fighting at the front? Why has he made so many mistakes today?
Yeah, indeed. So there's a replay then of Van Loosenhoorn as he worked himself through that lap traffic and headed himself down towards Sunset Bend. Looks right initially, cannot find the line, then gets pushed out all the way to the outside. Moves himself then on the outside line, finds a lane to make it work for him. Van Loosenhoorn moves himself down into P number 4. And I will say, that's actually probably the best part I've seen by Van Loosenhoorn in quite a while.
Indeed, and you talk about Van Loosenhoorn and work that he was doing on Race Spot Race Day with the Formula Renault Sim Cup. You know, he is this driver who does have a very good ability, and I've just been looking at Lynn Luoto here in the final stage. He's got to get past this battle between Kresrick and Hill that's going on, and look who's coming into play there. That's Frederick Sikora, 4 wide, 2 wide, 2 deep in towards 3, and Lynn Luoto will have to get past all of them in this situation. Big dive to the outside, though, behind that from the driver of John G. Hill, and Hill trying to hold on to it, and Kresrick couldn't do enough.
Yeah, so for Tabano Lenoto, this is huge for him right now. He's losing time, losing motivation, losing pretty much everything right now. The gap between himself and the race leader is 4.5 seconds as a consequence of that moment. And that is all coming out of this lap right now. You see behind him, it is a treasure cove of drivers trying to find themselves past GTP to GTO car, GTO to GTP car. And actually, Lenoto there was methodical, but was it enough? I don't quite think so. It's behind. It's all going on.
Yeah, Kresrick went for the power move, the big money move, and actually collected Strokebeck in that incident. So Strokebeck's race, you can argue for the race lead, is now gone, but that was being too aggressive. He saw the gap, he visualized the line in his mind, and when he got right down to it, he was too aggressive on that line. John G. Hill gains about 5 seconds on Kresrick, and Brian Strokebeck an innocent bystander. Yeah,
and there we are. There's a look then on the replay, down to the outside as Kresrick is there. And what happened really was the number 21 machine just tried to find a way past, could not find a way of doing so, and it all kind of started from there. It was a weird one there, Jake, because here's a replay again as we exit the hairpin, as they head themselves now towards Cunningham Corner. That is where the track gets the most bounced up. And I just want to pause it here because you can't go 2 into 1 like that. You can't just make a light dive on an Audi Quattro in this circumstance and expect to get away with it.
Exactly, and especially off the exit when you think that the Audi has much better traction when it comes to that sort of area. So, you know, it was a case of being a little bit too greedy if your name's Martin Krejcik. So Krejcik has to be careful about how he makes his moves and when he decides them, because that was reckless. And there's no other way of describing it but a reckless move down to the inside. Yes, he got the he tried to get a position on John Hill, but Krejcik has to be a little bit more careful than that. He needs to understand that the moment he goes to make that move, other vehicles won't be reciprocating of this. This isn't the same as going at it against a computer will. This is going up against other people who have entitled rights to lines.
Indeed so. Let's have a look down at your GTO field for the moment, because we have still got ourselves the fact that Joni Hagner is leading the way right now over Brian Strodbeck, and then the gap between actually Hagner and Strodbeck is 5.9 seconds. Philip Blake is a further, get this, 37 seconds right now behind your 2 race leaders.
Yeah, losing all that time, 36 seconds. There's not much you can say if you happen to be named Philip Blake right now in the amount of time that you lose, but in terms of this race, if you're losing that much time, Philip Blake's no slouch to the driver, but as we say, there's only 8 drivers here who are wanting to run that Audi, which is a little bit of a shame. So that difference between first and third may be a little bit larger than more than meets the eye. But take no credit away from Joni Hagner. Hagner's been that brilliant more rather than Lake's been that bad, if you sort of get what I mean.
I get what you mean. Let's look at your top 8, bottom of your screen. In terms of your GTP field even, it is Keith Ritchie leading the way by 3.2 seconds over to Pano Lanalotto. Third place, Jonas Ursen Purica, then Van Loosenord, Lepesto, McLeod, Gignac, and Jumbluff. And we now turn our attention over to your GTO field, and then it's Joni Hagner leading the way by about 6 seconds over Brian Strodbeck. He has really pulled out that advantage. Philip Lake in third place. Then got Scurry in fourth place, and Rodbeck in fifth, Bashimi in sixth, and then Foy and Cavisto rounds out your top 8. There's only 8 drivers who run in your GTO field here tonight, Jake.
Yeah, that's where we've seen maybe a little bit less traffic, which has been very useful for those drivers in the likes of, say, the GTP field and their way of trying to negotiate through the traffic. But they've had to deal with their own class as well throughout this event, which has always been very difficult. As Little Auto dives down to the inside of Franco Scurry through Bishop Corner into the right-hander of Le Mans. He will go right about now. So Little Auto trying everything to get back through the next sort of drivers that you see. But what we have seen is, while we have seen some crazy moves that have been going on, we've still seen at the front of the field some very fair and very deliberate battling that has ultimately led to what is a very good race. You could argue maybe 3.5 towards 4 stars of an event.
Indeed, so there we are, come past start finish. Let's ride a lap on board actually with Tapano Lanalotto. He's gaining, Jay, but is it enough? With 1 lap to go then at the line for these drivers, this is the white flag lap for these guys, and it's closed up all of a sudden because the gap is now down to just 7/10 of a second.
For now, but he's got to get past John Keith here to find a little Auto. That's the big issue. Yes, it's the last lap. Yes, you wondered, is Keith Ritchie taking too much off the throttle? Little Auto has been caught in all the wrong places. He can't do it around the outside of Big Ben. John Keith's got to relinquish that position, and Little Auto will be very aggressive on the brakes, but oh, no, he's not. He's going to go around, and that's going to be it for Little Auto's challenge. Too much, too late. And he had the one brass ring and he didn't grasp it. He
didn't. And he's not lost any positions. And I think that was a case of him putting the pressure down, but not necessarily realizing that by doing that, he would lose himself P2. Little Auto right now is down in that second position, but he's now got 6 seconds behind Keith Ritchie.
Yeah, and that's a shame for Little Auto. He won't get the victory, but what he will get is still a podium. Keith Ritchie, it's one of those moments where you see an incident happen behind you, you wipe the sweat from your brow, you give yourself a small little fist bump in the cockpit that you've got, and you say, thank goodness that this race is over, because that was too scary towards the end.
Final lap, white flag is out. There's no more time on the play clock for these drivers as they come down towards Sunset Bend for the final time. Keith Ritchie. Out of the final corner, Sunset Bend for the final time. He will take victory in terms of Racebot Prime Time and here in the Kamel GT Championship. Ritchie will win in terms of your Nissan GTP Pro Class. But let's have a look at Joni Hagner, because he's still got a bit of a way to go. He's only heading himself down in towards Le Mans corner as we speak, Jake.
Yeah, and Joni Hagner's raced beautifully all race long. He hasn't had the chance to necessarily relax during this event. He brought the gap out to 6 seconds, made the mistake in the stop drop behind Brian Strokebeck, but even though he was hung out to dry and pushed off by Strokebeck, he still managed to wrestle away through on that next lap. And I think for Joni Hagner, this has been a class drive from a class driver.
One of the better drivers, one of the best drivers actually to ever. Oh my word! He's lost it! He's lost it! Down the final corner!
He's showing
Can
off.
he get it off? I think he will do. Joni Hagner towards the line, drifting, dangerous, but he gets himself victory.
Oh, he knew what he was doing, I think, there, Will, but showing that Sunset Bend would be great if you stuck a nice little cone on that apex. I think, how many star points would you give him for that?
About 10 at least.
Good, good.
Of course, we're not talking about any other simulator that might or might not give star points. But here they are then, the drifts for Joni Hagner. Nope, nothing. Keith Ritchie, however, is going to drive it back towards pit road. He's got a congregation behind him. Can you hear me, Jake?
I can hear you. And, well, what a brilliant, brilliant race it's been all race long. And Keith Ritchie will be happy getting himself over to the end of this one, but my goodness, did he make a big zero out of it and a meal of it. And Little Auto, another day, he may have had a chance to make a last-minute move.
Bert Van Lutenhoorn, let's talk about him for a moment, because he did get himself back up to P4. You see on the back of your screen right now, and yes, he did have that mistake, but Van Lutenhoorn, P4 there for the Evolution Racing Team car.
P4 for Martin Van Lutenhoorn, and well, I wouldn't say Evolution Racing Team, Will, even though that is what it shows on his vehicle, but Martin Van Lutenhoorn, P4, I'd be disappointed if I was him. He had the pace to go and win this one, I think.
And on towards pit road, the drivers come. Let's then show you your final race results here from fantastic, amazing Sebring Raceway. So there we are then. A race is scored complete. And let's have a look at your final race results. Keith Ritchie leads the way in terms of your field here today. He will get himself, well, a fantastic win in terms of your GTP machine. And he wins out by 6 seconds over to Panel Lennon Auto. Lennon Auto, that's not entirely right, I don't think. So we're just going to spend a moment and we will step back for a moment and we'll get our final race results after this. Welcome back to iSpot TV, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see there, Keith Richley wins the race in terms of your Nissan GTP machines, and he got the victory over the driver at Panel Lenoto by 6.5 seconds here today. Lenoto, despite the fact he made a spin on the final lap of the motor race, he comes home in second. And Yunus Usampurica comes home in third place. Martin van Luzenhoorn, he is in fourth. And Ansi de Pesto, he comes home in P number 5. Thoughts, Jake, go.
Well, I thought it was a fantastic race from minute one to last. A lot of mistakes, though, through your GTP field, and I think that without those mistakes, we'd see a 4-car scrap for the victory, but it's not about who has made the mistakes or who hasn't. It's about who's there at the end, and Keith Ritchie, consistency pays off, and that is the message that I think a lot of drivers need to take away from this.
And there's a look then at your Audi field, your GTO field. As you can see that Joni Hagner wins that one by 7.7 seconds over Brian Stockback. And that gap is huge compared to the fact that coming out of pit road, Stockback did lead the motor race.
Yeah, Strodbeck struggled in the second half of the event. The moment the traffic came into play, he was less experienced in that sense, was very gracious in the way that he let through traffic and wasn't as ruthless as Joni Hagner was. As you say that, though, Will, I believe we have a Joni Hagner waiting to have a little talk with you.
Indeed, so we're going to do that next here on RaceSpot TV and on iRacing Live. We'll be back in just a couple of moments' time. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to RaceSpot TV. And welcome to post-race interviews here from the Kamel GT Championship here at Sebring International Raceway, where out front we had ourselves Keith. He won the race here today. Keith Richley won over Spinal Lenoto by 6.5 seconds. Joni Hagner won the way in terms of your GTP machine. We got ourselves, first of all, Joni Hagner here. Joni, you've won a race here on RaceSpot Prime Time. How does it feel?
Well, the race was quite hard. Lot of traffic and good competition by Brian, so it was really much fun.
Fun? Is that all it was? Fun?
Yeah, fun.
Fun. It was a tough race at points, that pit stop sequence. You seemed to be behind, you got the race leader back, and you ended up winning the motor race. Talk us through it.
Yeah, Brian got the undercut by a few seconds, and I take a bit too much fuel, so he got by me, and I needed to pass him again, so that's like best part of the today's race.
Okay, so you win here tonight. You've been absent from almost everything. What do you do in your spare time right now?
Drive Audi GTO.
There we are. There's Johnny Hagner. He wins in GTO right now today, Jake. We've also got ourselves and drivers from GTP. We're going to start off with the driver of Upakaka. No, we're not. We're going to start with Lanloto.
Yeah, we are. We're going to start with Tapani Linloto Tapani. P2, and especially in the final stage, it looked like there maybe could have been more behind the vehicle, maybe a chance to take it away from Keith Ritchie, who surprisingly seemed a little bit slower in the final stages of the event. Talk us through that last lap.
Well, the last lap was, I was like 1.5 seconds behind, and there was some traffic, and I was just hoping that I would get a better luck through that traffic, and it wasn't to be, and I stuck behind Trent Keith, but it was his line, so I can't complain too much about that. And then I just made a mistake in the braking into the hairpin. I was hoping to catch Keith. I had a better car, newer tires, and made a few mistakes there trying to push everything I have. I had the chance, but I didn't take it today.
It didn't happen, but of course the field today looked incredibly strong with drivers from pasts and presents and futures as well, all looking to try and make a name for themselves here. So when you do sit yourself as what is classed as the #1 driver here today in terms of iRacing, do you feel that you hold maybe more of a responsibility heading on in towards the next few races?
Well, I don't know. iRacing is iRacing. I don't care too much. It's what it is.
Well, very short, very sweet there. But before we let you go, any shout-outs, any sponsors, anyone you'd like to thank?
Hello, Mom. If you hear me, hello.
Oh, how cute that is indeed. Tapani Linloto there, second position there, Will. And I believe you found a certain Usian Puheka.
Yes. Hi, Ethan. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Will, I'm doing just fine.
Just fine. How's your race been?
Well, the race was fine. I started it with a bit of a different strategy than most drivers, and it didn't pay off in the end. But finishing on the podium on the 3rd place with a result that is quite good for me in a series that is new for me, because I only done one race in this series in the past, and that was last week at Silverstone. And instead of flying to UK, instead of flying to France for Le Mans, I flew to Florida for the Sebring race.
You saying? Okay, I see what you're going with that. I was like, you say you didn't fly to UK and see me?
No, I didn't fly to Le Mans because Classic Lotus Grand Prix is at Le Mans, but I went to Florida instead because it's better. Okay. So you got 3rd place here today in this series in the Nissan GTP. How's the traffic here today? Traffic was surprisingly fine. I mean, I got a bit unlucky in the first stint because I got caught up behind a few Audis, but
yeah, but you also spun.
But the traffic was fine otherwise because nobody gave me a hard time and everything else was fine.
And are you gonna race the next round at Monza, or is it gonna be like broadcast race? I'll do that.
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, Monza is not one of my favorite tracks. I don't think it's much of a racetrack, to be honest. It's not enough skill oriented for me. I don't like Monza and I don't like Le Mans. I don't think that's a secret. But you know, most likely not. But if I end up liking the Nissan, then maybe. We'll see. Okay, well, thank you very much to you, St. Urson Purka. Before we let you go, who do you want to give a shout out to? I would like to thank the entire Inertia sim racing team for their support, as well as Tapani for support setup wise. And I would also like to say hi to Mom. Hi, Mom. How you doing? Moi, Silpa. So, Jake, we leave Kamel GT here at Sebring, and everyone wants to talk about their mothers.
They do, and I don't know whether it's down to the fact that maybe the races weren't the way that they wanted to, and they need to have maybe a little thing. But before that, Keith Ritchie's shown up.
Hello, Keith Ritchie standing by with you.
With me. Oh, Keith Ritchie, race win, and well, You're the man that everyone says is Mr. Kamel GT at the moment, and a race victory only goes to solidify that.
Hey guys, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine, buddy.
Okay. Yeah, I look forward to these races. This is the kind of race that this is why I race this series, and this is why I love it so much. Is these kind of races are just an absolute blast, and I think that I was kind of regretting my earlier pit, but I felt like I needed to kind of refocus, and I was kind of planning a little bit earlier pit stop, but I knew that was going to hurt me in the end, and Tapani definitely put the pressure on. He had better pace toward the end of the race, and I was just trying to manage the gap there a little bit, and wasn't managing the traffic as well as I think I could have, and definitely misread some of the lines a little bit, but happy to come away with the win, and thanks for doing the broadcast, guys. It's been great.
Oh, no worries at all there, Keith. You know, looking at the way that you've been setting up, you've got Monza coming up next week, which will be something very good. Of course, Global Sim Racing Channel always stream a Kamel GT race here and there. Give a bit of love to them. But
Well,
you,
who's
Keith,
GSRC?
oh, come on.
Yeah, I love GSRC. Love a little bit of GSRC.
Kind of have to when you're an employee, but you know, Keith, you put yourself in a situation where you are what is considered the top guy in GTP right now. You put yourself in a situation where you qualify with a pace that beats all challengers who come to your throne. Do you feel that maybe that there is a lot of weight for you to maybe win the overall championship in iRacing this year, given the fact that you've got so much pressure on your shoulders? And do you feel that maybe having the chance to maybe relax a little bit with that pressure, having been taking out lap 1 of the GT500 a few months ago, has really refocused your progress in the series?
You know, I try to be real focused for events like that, and that's what I look forward to, is on the big stage in the big events, and I think that's where it's important. That's really one area where the iRating could definitely help to make sure in a top split of a race like that. But other than that, I'm not real concerned about, you know, season standings and whatnot. I really want to see the Kamel GT series grow. I really want to try to support and help people out. I share the setups that I run, and anybody who's interested in this kind of racing, if you participated or if you watched the race, come join us. We've got 4 races per week that we have scheduled. Good group. It's a good kind of a league environment, and a lot of good camaraderie. And so, yeah, come out and join us. It's a great series. It takes a little bit more practice and preparation than a lot of series, but it's well worth the effort.
Certainly is very similar to the likes of the CTC in that respect. Keith Ritchie then, a race victory, and a very dominant race victory when all was said and done. Could have been a little bit closer, but Tapani's been, well, just taking it away in the end.
Yeah, and thank you very much to Keith Ritchie there. And also shout out to our friends over at GSRC. Let's give them a shout out. Visit globalsimracingchannel.com if you want to see the Global Sim Racing Channel. Of course, you see them often here on iRacing Live. We love those guys. We love all the guys that he's worked with us. But we're done here, Jake.
We
and
are.
I've got nothing to do all weekend.
I know. Well, I do, but because, you know, I'm an employee somewhere else. But, you know, you've got yourself a weekend to yourself, a chance to, you know, relax a little bit after everything that you go through. And, you know, sometimes sim racing does need that little bit of a break, because sometimes it is event after event and you don't know which one to prioritize. Yep. And just want to say one thing before we go off there. Michelinism is a load of beep. I did that exactly the same point as the graphic there went off air, but Kamel GT Championship, Sebring International Raceway, we have been RaceWhat TV. We are a load of fun, and we'll talk to you all next time. Goodbye.